Welcome to the May meeting of the Commission on Aging. Thanks to everybody for being here. We do have a quorum, appreciate that. We're also joined today by Peter Bigelow and Myrna Acosta, who are here to talk about the Darien Housing Authority. Welcome, thank you both for being here. Great. We will move you guys quickly, but our first order of business is a discussion of the April minutes. Do people have changes? Oh, we got two changes. Peter, go first, and then or maybe with three changes. Peter, go.
The recording secretary last month mixed up my name with my condition.
Ah.
I'm not elder. Well, I am elder, but I'm
Better. Okay, there we go. We got that one.
There is one other substantive
Yep.
change, and that is when we talked last time about the volunteer tax program, I taught it is the volunteer income tax
Okay.
assistance. So it's VITA, not VICA as it's reported
Got it.
here. So again, for anybody wanting to do volunteer tax work, it's the VITA site.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Jim?
Well, it's not important except for the meeting to be official, I
Yeah.
think. Ray Slavin wasn't here
Okay,
last week,
okay.
yet he apparently seconded the motion to adjourn.
Okay, fair
So
enough. So somebody besides Ray, oh,
It
now
was Peter.
I'm gonna get, now we
Peter
got lots
seconded
from everybody.
both
This is gonna
motions.
get interesting. Hold on, sorry guys. Okay, we need to keep this one open then. Come on in, come on in, I'm gonna use something.
I'm gonna text it this.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you one right here.
Oh, there he is.
Brilliant. There you go, see if you get in, okay?
Hey, Ray. This is Mr. Slavin.
Right, there's Ray. Okay, so for people on TV 79 wondering what the heck is going on here, the people of the town of Darien decided to lock the Commission on Aging into room 119, okay? Because that door is locked, okay? And what we just found out now is that door is locked, so they must want to keep us here forever. Nevertheless, we have put a chair here so that at least Peter and Myrna can get out of here, okay? Before the Darien police show up to close that door again, so that we can all starve to death. But in any event, the long story short is we will ask Public Works to work on those locks before our next meeting of the Commission on Aging. Okay, looks like Beth's already on it. Okay, thank you, Beth. Beth's texting. Thank you, Beth. And so we will return to our business, which was the last thing was Jim was talking about the of some changes. You got those? Perfect. And I think I saw Tom have a change as well.
My name was misspelled.
Okay.
It should be D-E-M-P.
P-S-E-Y. Okay, so we've got an elder and an eder and a Dempsey and a Dempsey. Okay, so we now have those all corrected. And we now have Ray here this month. Awesome. Thank you, Ray. So we're all good, okay? Any other changes to the minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as modified? Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, thanks so much. And now, without further ado, I present to you Peter Bigelow, Treasurer of the Darien Housing Authority, and his colleague Myrna Acosta, who are going to be talking to us today about their role in the Darien Housing Authority with the Royal at Darien, as well as their partnership with the Heights at Darien. Peter, the stage is all yours.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate being here. So I'm the treasurer of the Darien Housing Authority, and the Darien Housing Authority was actually a state chartered organization. The housing authorities in the state of Connecticut were dictated to be put in place by the state. So we're quasi-town, quasi-state. We have to follow a lot of state regulations as well as local zoning and various local regulations. We have two properties. I'll talk about the Heights first, which was the old Alamo O'Neill Housing. We have 106 units there, all affordable units. It's not age restricted, but it is affordable, independent living housing. We also have the Royal, which was formerly Old Town Hall Homes. We have 55 units there. That is a senior designated affordable housing unit that is an apartment style versus the Heights, which is a townhouse style living arrangement. Both properties are independent living. There are no medical options or so on down the line. You have to be able to live independently to be a resident in those two units. Because of the way we're set up, Neither facility is limited to only Darien residents. They're open to anybody who wants to apply to live in them. And same way, Darien residents can also apply to other housing authority properties such as New Canaan, Stamford, Norwalk, Westport, and so on. So, you know, we're not limited to just Darien. I think there's a bit of confusion in that regard. We are part of, we are affordable housing per state regulations, and have various income levels. So in each of our properties, and Myrna can go into more detail on this, but we have certain income levels. So when you get on the list, it's really several lists. It's based on what income you report at the time you get on that list. And so if there's a turnover in a different income level, you may not be called because it's a different income level than you signed up for originally. So that's why sometimes people are on the list longer than people they know who got on the list at the same time. And typically, there's very low turnover in any of these properties. Clearly, Darien's a desirable town to live in, and especially the lower income levels, there's almost no turnover. The higher income levels, there may be some. And regrettably, in the Royals, there may be some because of people who pass away and therefore are no longer residents of the facility. We are for the affordable rates, we're part of the Fairfield County Stamford area rates, which are managed by HUD, and every year they update those rates. And so the number, the income level you could have is a bit of a moving target based on each year, things changing. We have, let's see what else here. We're not involved in any way with the privately owned affordable housing or 830G properties. And it's actually, I think, a kind of a potential opportunity for improvement in Darien to have some kind of a repository of who those properties are owned by, how they're managed, because there's a big difference in how things are managed, and who to contact. If we have people who say, I really want to get into affordable housing and your list is not going very fast, are there options? At least give them the option of knowing what those options are. And I also will say that when we did the old housing authority, I say pre-Heights, the housing authority managed properties. And we're all volunteers, and this is not our day job, if you will, to managing properties. So I'm not sure how well we did. We clearly did okay, but when we put the Heights in, we added a significant number of units. We then retained company Imagineers, and Myrna works for Imagineers, but she is our property manager for the Darien properties.
Quick question. How long ago did that transition occur?
That happened we opened the Heights in 2012, so it was roughly 2012 when we made that transition. And I was on the commission at that time. It was rough for some of the commissioners to let go, but we're glad, looking back, we did, because we have a professional management company that is fully aware of all the state laws, everything that has to be done properly, and they're consistent in how they administer the regulations and so on. So with 830G housing, and I know this from my days in planning and zoning, they don't necessarily have the experience managing the property, so there could be some issues in those types of housing. And the same thing with the professionally, Heights Landing, there's this one, and I'm not sure how they manage it. I don't know if they have a management company, but that's something that could impact how they're managed. And I'm just say that because, again, we have so many more options than we once did. There should be some way to at least have a clearinghouse for that information for anyone who's interested. I have a few more things, but I think at this point I want to turn over to Myrna, because she's the one who's in the trenches at the facilities, and she can talk more about waiting lists and what happens as far as the management of that process.
Thank you, Billy. Okay, my name, I'm not very good at talking in a lot of people, so bear with me. My name is Myrna Acosta. I'm the property manager for the Heights and the Royal. I've been working with Imagineers for 7 years. I started as an administrative assistant, moved into assistant property manager, and 2 years ago I was promoted to property manager. So I've been, for 7 years, managing both properties, so I was part of the whole renovation of Old Town Halls becoming to the Royal. So like Peter said, our properties are tax credit, which is affordable housing. Tax credit requires a certain percentage to be in a waiting list. So the percentage that we have is 25%, 50%, and 60%. What does that mean is that the income guidelines that the state releases every year will give you I should have printed up the income guidelines. I can send you all you guys an income guidelines as well. So you go into each percentage based on the family size. We decide, for example, a person is making 25,000 and it's one person, that person will qualify in our 25%. And then we go into our second
And
percentage.
25% is 25% of the average
Oh.
rent of,
Of their
No,
total income?
No, 25% is the tier. So it's not of what they're not gonna pay based on what they make. They're going to pay based on the tier. So a person who makes 25,000 will go into a one bedroom, 25%. And that bedroom is already calculated based on that percentage. So that percentage will give you an average of what the state says we should charge for a one bedroom, 25%. We deduct in consideration of the utility allowance, and we have a maximum number that we can charge. Based on that number, that's how we determine what the charges for that one bedroom, 25% will be.
How much is that generally?
Average for a one bedroom, 25%, right now they're $575.
Excuse me?
$575
a month.
a month. But you had to be within the income guidelines of 20,000 and 25,000. You cannot make over 25,000 because even if you make $1 over, you automatically go to a 50%. And 50% one bedroom would be $1,380 at this time, but they're just changed, so they are subject to change as well. And for a one bedroom, 60%, you will go into another tier, which will be right now there's $1,700 for a 60% one bedroom. So the income guidelines and the percentage change based on people's income. So you're making 25,000, you will be in a 25%. You're making 50,000, you'll be in a 50%. You're making 70,000, you'll be in a 60%. And that's the reasons why, like Peter said, certain percentage move faster than other ones. Like 80% of our waiting list on the 25% are seniors. So a lot of the seniors tend not to leave the property, so unless medical things changes for them. Then the 50%, we have an average a little bit of changing, but not as much because 80% of the applicants that we have are in a median income, which we consider a 50% between 30,000 to 60,000, counting as a one person, right? And then we have the other percentage, which is our 60%, which is averaged from 50,000 to 72,000. So the income guidelines, that's how we follow our percentage. Then we have our waiting list. Every time a person applies and submits an application, we determine which percentage tier they will go. So the 25% has one bedroom, two bedrooms, three bedrooms, based on their income, based on their family size. That's how we follow their percentage. And then we put them in the waiting list. Like Peter said, we have not just one waiting list, we have 3 waiting lists for the one bedroom 25%, 3 waiting lists for the 50%, and 3 waiting lists for the 60%. There is a big confusion when people say, oh, I applied 2 months ago, and this person applied 2 months ago, but they might be friends, and I applied 3 years ago. This person maybe have gotten in the 60%, and the person who is the friend is in the 25%. I've been 7 years in the property, and I can tell you, just based on the heights, I have had probably 4 units in the 25% for now 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms come up. Yes.
Is the waiting list for each property, or is it?
Correct. So the Royal, when I'm talking about different bedroom size, will be at the heights, and then the Royal has only the 1 bedroom, and we have 2 bedrooms on the Royal. So the Royal has 3 waiting lists on a 1 bedroom, 25%, then a waiting list on the 50%, and a waiting list on the 60%.
And right now,
So
those
you
waiting
can-
lists are closed, correct?
Correct.
The waiting list has been closed in 2022 because when we opened the Royal, automatically they did the lottery, they select certain people, and then some people got into the waiting list. The reason why we closed the waiting list is because even when we open our list and select, and we announce it for 60%, which is the waiting list that mostly people move, come in 1 year, they stay 2 years, and it's more changes happening in those lists. People don't understand, they're still send applications and they're making 20,000. And they automatically think, oh, I applied, the waiting list was open, and I tried to explain to them, yes, it was open for the 60%, which make it clear it was 60%. So right now, This will be, or we do updates on a waiting list every 2 years, so this will be our second year that we had to do updates when we send notice to all the people on the waiting list, make sure that the income is still qualified, then the income may be changed, maybe they need to be moved to a different list, maybe people are not interested. Some people might have passed away, so anything that has changed in the list this year, we will do an update. Once they receive the update, they have to respond to the update to make sure they want to continue in the waiting list. And then we would determine whether we had to open the lists or we had to remain them closed.
So you don't know when you would open the waiting list at this juncture?
No, at this juncture, no.
Okay, sorry, I'll go try it.
It just concerns me that the list has been closed for 2 years. How can you possibly know what the need is if you aren't allowing people to apply?
Because the lists are so long. We have, I can tell you, just from the top of my head, I can tell you on the 25%, I have over 80 people waiting on a 1-bedroom 25% in both places. So I haven't get any 1-bedroom 25% on the Royal or in the Heights. I had gotten 2 on the Heights, so people who moved it a little bit, but talking about 80 people only at the Heights and almost similar as about 79 over at the Royal. By the time we're able to move these people out, once we do this year, we do our letters and we find out who can stay, who cannot stay, then we can determine, okay, we have 50 people, we should get more people into the list. But we can't continue adding people to our list if it's not enough apartments becoming available.
But it seems to me that the Housing Authority and the state of Connecticut should know if there are even 200 more people that our housing needs are not being met. It seems to me it's a very important statistic to realize that the 80 that are on the list are just a drop in the bucket and that we need to do more.
I think the state's very much aware we need to do more. And our housing authority, we'd love to build more housing. Absolutely, we'd love to build more housing. We have 2 problems. A, land, and in Darien, a couple of projects have come up and, we talk often about what else can we do. And, one option is there's at least one building in Tokenique Road, which is an office building, so, what if we were able to get that and repurpose it? The problem is, it's a $40 million piece of property as is, so the guy's not gonna give it away. So that's not really a viable option, because financially we can't make it foot out. Because when we build these units, we not only need to be able to afford to build the unit, we need to be able to afford to have contingency cash to be able to pay for repairs. And we also need to be able to relocate people if we build a new unit, relocate and bring them back in. So there are a lot of other soft costs that we have to be able to handle. So the ideal world would be if there's a piece of property the town of Darien owned, but they really don't have any property. So Darien is in a uniquely disadvantaged position. The state would love us to do something. I think they would be very happy if the Housing Authority could come up with a way to build another Heights, to build another Royal. We've had internally conversations about workforce housing. As recently as when we did the Royal, which is 3 years ago, I guess, there was no financial vehicle to handle workforce housing. And workforce housing is you have employees in a town who can't afford market rate housing. Is there a way to have housing that's dedicated to them? So it might be police, could be the teachers, employees of the town hall, whomever. There were no ways to finance it. There are now some ways to finance that kind of property, but you're back to the same issue. You need land, which is the most expensive commodity around here. Then you can go out and find ways to do financing. We have financial partners who are experts in this, but they come back and say, there's no way you can afford to buy a 5-acre tract of property in Darien.
But you have 80 acres you just got.
Well, the town of Darien got it.
That's what I'm saying. So my question is, okay, why isn't the Housing Authority pushing to say, hey, let's dedicate a portion of our wonderful great island to affordable housing? You got the land.
Right, well, there are some conversations which are taking place. I'm not sure that piece of property has been put on the
I'm sure it
list.
hasn't, because everything we're hearing is, oh, it should be a wonderful country club, it should be this, it should be pickleball, it should be everything else. Housing has not been at all mentioned
Right.
as a potential, but you can't make the argument on land anymore. I don't buy it,
Well-
okay? Because that
But
Before you could say, well, we have dedicated parks, we're not gonna turn Cherry Lawn into a affordable housing. We're not gonna turn a field into affordable housing, but now, you've got a massive piece of property, of which if you put a certain portion of it aside, now you could say, how can you have waterfront property for low-income people? Well, sorry, there's your land.
Well,
Okay.
I was gonna go back to when I was in planning and zoning a dozen years ago, that was my comment. The last piece of property is gonna be Ziegler's, and it's gonna end up being mandated by the state to be affordable housing. You know, something like that's gonna happen. But I come back to, we're not Darien, we can have conversations, but that's not housing authority land, it's Darien land.
Understood. But it's a political decision.
Yes, it's a political decision. It's also one of, does it make sense? Because a lot of the advantages of being in the Heights is we have people who can walk to the train.
Right.
And do things which
Oh,
you can't
absolutely.
necessarily do when you're
No
far
question.
off of the.
And believe me, I know it's a fantasy, it's never gonna happen, okay, I get it, but it's a
But
very.
you should ask. I hear you.
You gotta ask, because
You gotta
you
ask.
mentioned the word land, especially after it just happened so recently, right? And I get it, it's not gonna happen, so already a TV 79 is gonna email me, no, I know it's not gonna happen. So at the end of the day, though, the question's going to be, where else, if not there, you
Right.
know? And you're saying right now, I don't have anything.
Correct. The housing authority does not have anything. And, you know, we'd be very happy to have conversations with anyone in the town government about, are there parcels that may be available that could be used? And, you know, whether it's on Scotch Cove or whether it's in downtown Darien, but that's the restriction we have in being able to build new housing.
Understood. Jim, I cut you off, you had a question?
Yeah, I understand the lists are closed, but if I'm on the list at 50K income, and over a 6-month period, my income goes under 25,000, can I be shifted?
Yep, it's your responsibility to email the office and let them know my income changed, my circumstances changed, so those updates can be made in the waiting list. Either way, if you went up or if you went down, you should be emailing, so we let those people know every time they apply. But every 2 years, we do the update where you get the opportunity to let us know. We remind you, hey, did your income change? Are you still in the same tier? Should we put you in a different tier? And we remind you how long more we typically probably be waiting for.
But it's not immediate.
Correct. If the changes happen immediately, you should be responsible to make those updates with us.
Okay, but you make the update.
Correct.
Do you change the list when you get the update?
Correct,
Oh, okay.
correct.
And if someone were to contact us proactively and say, situation's
only-
changed,
we
then
can-
we would,
If we receive a lot of calls, we always recommend to people, you have to do it by writing. You know, it's a
Yeah.
paper trail, you have to do it by writing, those changes has to always be submitted by writing.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
I
sorry,
have
let-
two questions.
Sure.
One is, you said 80% of the seniors, when you say seniors, you mean 62 or you mean 55?
Well,
62?
Oh,
Where
wait,
is an age?
mostly seniors, 62 and up, because
Okay,
mostly
because
they're
that's
the
what
ones
the
in
state
social
says.
security, correct.
Yeah.
They're social security, mostly
Okay.
social security are falling into our 25%
So when you
tiers.
say 80% of seniors, how many seniors do you estimate is on 80% of the 25K? Is it 10 seniors, 20 seniors?
And the 80%, and the
And
80%,
the 80%
at
number.
least almost 60% is seniors.
No, but how many people?
In total,
No, just at 25, you said 80% are seniors. How many seniors are there? Are there 25 seniors? 15
I don't know
seniors?
off the top of my head.
And then at 50K, how many seniors? What's the percentage of seniors on the 50?
It's lower than the 25% for sure. 'Cause-
So it's
'cause-
probably like 60% are seniors.
Correct.
Okay, the second question I have is Darien Commons. What happened there?
That's not
Not
our
our
property.
there's a lot of confusion.
Gee, I guess, so
In
you're
fact,
not,
And then
we even
the
asked them early on, can you change the name? Because there was a lot of confusion,
And
they
it's-
had comments.
And they're
that
actually
said,
building a new property called the Heights Crossover, which is gonna be scheduled to open next year.
So that's
It's-
land.
it
That's
is
land
also-
and building that we could have.
And it's also not our property either.
It's privately held property where they put in to have a portion of the property as affordable housing.
So 10% of those Darien Commons and 10% of Crossover will have affordable housing, so
Yeah, I
people.
saw that.
So it's
Yeah.
not, it's not
But
a
it's not for
true
seniors.
830G type property, there's a
Correct.
different carve out, but it's the same thing, it's not owned, it's privately owned, So they have to come up with how they're gonna manage the property. Because when you have affordable housing, you have additional responsibilities rather than being just a landlord. So I don't know how they're set up, I don't know if they have a management company, I don't know if they're doing it internally, have no idea. And that's what I'm saying, we really should have better coordination in the town now that we have some significant pieces of property that have affordable housing, component.
Incorporated
Yeah.
into it, yeah. What is this trust fund? Affordable Housing Trust Fund?
Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the town came up with where, if you are building, and, I used to know all the details from P and Z, but if you're building a development of some kind, and you're supposed to have a portion that have apartments, you're supposed to have a portion which are for affordable housing. And in lieu of having affordable housing, you can pay the town a fee, and that goes into the trust fund that can be used for future quote development. And when we did the Heights, we received some money from the town, from that trust fund, to assist with, build the Royal.
Sorry, I had a question.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the Royal. Why was the age limit reduced to 55? It was always supposed to be senior housing.
Well, so 55 and older is based on the plan selectment plan. So once,
Excuse me?
the plan selectment that they chose when they did the.
Gary Ann selectment?
The plan selectment is how they select the units and the percentage. So tax credit has requirements. So certain requirements will fall into like age limits, into percentage, into who can apply and
In the
different.
financing world, 55 and up is
It's
considered
considered
senior.
senior, it's correct.
So,
The state thinks it's 62.
Correct.
So this was a state thing, or was it the Darien
It
Housing?
was
Authority?
how we do the financing.
Financing.
Yeah, because the state has.
So when we're doing financing for this, we're in essence going to Wall Street firms, and they're buying tax credits. And the tax credits, they'll have they'll have to buy the tax credits what they need to be able, what the rules must be. And that's a big portion of how we get the money to build developments. So both the Heights and Royal, we received quite a bit of money when we sold the tax credits for doing the project to companies who then use those tax credits.
So it's on certain requirements that the program has in order for us to build the property and open the property, which one will include 55 and older, and being able to open it to everybody.
So how many tenants at the Royal are 62 and over?
Believe it or not, it's not a lot of, I can answer the question in a different way, it's not a lot of 55 and older. Everybody in our waiting list over at the Royal and our tenants over at the Royal are at least 90% are 65 and over. It's not as many, we don't get as many 55 and older. Reasons why, because you might find a 55 older applicant who apply, and once they come in and we tell them, yes, it's a senior property, they say, oh no, I don't want to live here, I'm not ready for senior yet. They're in that stage, they're like, oh, I'm not ready to be here yet.
If they'd only gotten on the waiting list though, they would have been a senior by the time they got here.
Correct.
Also seniors who live on the Heights. And
Yeah, so-
They live there, they prefer that environment.
Yeah, that's another option that we have. People think that if you are at the Royal waiting list, you can be in the Heights waiting list. No, you can switch over and change over as long as the day matches, the day that you apply. And one of them, you can switch to whatever.
How many seniors are at the Heights?
So, believe it or not, all the one bedrooms at the Heights are mostly filled in by seniors as well.
Like how many?
So we have 4 buildings, 8, on the top of my head, I should wrote these numbers. I would say like 50% of the seniors live over there in the one bedrooms, because we have on the first floor and we have some on the second floor, which sometimes if things change for them, they're able to transfer to a lower floor. A lot of the ones that are in the top are not seniors yet, but they're in their way to be seniors, I would say. So it's a lot of single people and seniors in the one bedrooms over at the Heights. And we have that option for the Royal and for the Heights. So if you chose to transfer to the Heights or transfer to the Royal, you can do that as well.
And how many vacancies have you had, say, in the past year at the Royal?
The Royal, we have had quite a few, from the top of my head, I don't know the number. We have quite a few changes, I would say about 10 or more over at the Royal.
So the waiting list is, you know,
We have 10 units, but you gotta remember 10 units in different percentage. So each percentage have changed, yes,
But the overall waiting list is would be impacted by those 10.
correct, correct. But we have had changes.
I mean, have you considered reopening this
We
waiting
will
list?
determine that this year, once we do our update, so around July, also between July and September, we determine to do our update, so by the end of the year, we will determine if we will open our waiting
I
list.
think what you're hearing from the Commission on Aging is it would be a very, very good idea to reopen your waiting list, to see what you get this year, okay? Because I think our concern is that having a closed waiting list for 2 years, and if you decide to keep it closed, that means it's effectively 3 years, okay? Doesn't give you a sense of what's out there. Now, I know it's an administrative hassle, I get it, believe me, I do. But at the same time, to move an open waiting list, even for, you know, say we're gonna open it until we get 100 on each of these tiers, right? So you can close it again. Once you tell us, hey, listen, now we're up to 100 of each person, of each side, or you pick a time frame. We're gonna open it for 3 months, or whatever you're gonna open it for, allows us to say, okay, we now at least have some clue as to what the need is. And yes, as Peter noted, we all know there's a massive need, so I grant you that. But it would be helpful to know within Darien and the surrounding communities, how many people would in fact smash through your website to quickly get on that waiting list if in fact it was reopened. So I'd urge you to tell your folks, please reopen that list this year to be in a position where we can at least get some gauge of this, and then feel free to close it again once you show, hey, we now have X.
Yeah, we will have
That's
to,
what we do.
we will have to do the update first,
Mhm.
because doing the update will make a more efficient
Sure.
waiting list, so once our update is completed, and that's the goal.
But you only update it every 2 years?
Yeah.
That just seems very,
The movement
There's not enough
is not enough movement, we don't control that, you know, like, some people are being in the waiting list, you know, 3-4 years.
So it'll be 4 years if you decide to keep it closed. just
We
like-
have not decided to keep it closed.
But if you did,
Oh.
just if you
Right.
did, it would be 4 years then. So we would be looking at reopening the waiting list at the earliest in 2026, if in fact you chose to keep it closed.
If we chose to do that, which I don't think we're
We're
going
not.
to do.
Okay,
But backing up, we have 161 units total.
right,
And so it's not like we have 500 or 600 units total.
Understood.
And so it doesn't take it doesn't take long for the list to fill up.
oh, I get it,
Because we also have to publicize when we open it up, how long it's gonna be open. We have to do it not just in Darien, but we have to do it throughout the state.
understood,
And so we get people from all over who will get on that list.
sure.
And so I don't know the total number, but my guess is you probably, for both properties, still have over 100 people on the list.
In each list?
No, total, that's total.
Oh, we have like over, at the heights, at least like 500 and something, each percentage. And the Royal about 300 and something.
So it's a huge number, that's what I'm saying. It's-
Understood.
I get it.
And then we still get, every day we get calls, every day, I remember you meeting with you before, when you came to, for one of your clients. So every day we get calls, every day we get people coming to apply, every day people are looking for housing. And, you know, we always tell them, you know, keep an eye on the waiting list, keep an eye on the waiting list for any updates.
Right.
it's
Because
closed.
But it's unfortunately, we don't have control of how the movement happens, you know. If like we said, if we had more affordable housing, you know, we will be able to add more people to the list, you know. Even opening the list is not subject for a person to get an apartment right away. It
Sure.
could be another 2-3 years before they get an apartment.
At a minimum,
Correct,
yeah,
correct.
Darien.
yeah, okay. Fair enough, I mean, that's good stuff. Other questions?
Just a comment.
Yes, sir?
We just appointed a new member to the Housing Authority. He's got a great experience in construction and development.
Nice, great, very cool. Any other questions or comments? Peter?
I think we should continue looking at this as a commission. One of the things, again, I hear is there's a lot of information that's really hard to come by. So again, perhaps it's a senior center program. It certainly should be a session for At Home in Darien, for example. I really think we need to get the word out to our Darien population because it is more than a Darien issue. And so they ought to know that there might be opportunities in Stanford, in Norwalk, for example, because folks from Stanford and Norwalk are coming into Darien.
Sure.
But again, I really believe there's a lack of information on a complex subject, a critical subject. And we know the state has 90,000 units of housing that is short. So we know it's a problem. But again, let's focus on the seniors. And again, let's make sure we get the information out to them so they know about, and by the way, maybe then they'll start to complain and make their voices heard, and maybe we can do something more at the state level dealing with this very important and critical issue.
Absolutely.
I do, I want to respond to your comment. I do agree in what you said. The lack of information for seniors is hard because a lot of the applicants that come to our office come with those questions to us. And I typically have applications for New Canaan, for Stanford, so I'm always searching on openings for senior. They have a lot of more seniors in Stanford. I do work with some of the housings in Stanford and New Canaan, so if I have a person in need who's coming in and it says, hey, I really need to get, my house has been in sale, or I had to move out, I explain to them our waiting list is closed, but you can reach out to New Canaan Housing because I heard they're having openings, or reach out to Stanford Housing or any senior property they're having. The new properties that they're built, we don't management, but right away we start getting information that we can provide for people who can apply for affordable housing, even though it's 10% only, somebody can probably get in those too. So we do try to help people as much as we can, but one of the biggest problems is that seniors don't understand the percentage tiers. Because when they come to apply, they automatically assume they're just going to get a one waiting list. And like the example that I give you, your friend makes $60,000 and you make $25,000. Your friend who makes $60,000 got in before you, and then you're still waiting. And as much as we try to explain to them, we get threats. Oh, we're gonna call Hartford. We're gonna call the town. Ali and Cynthia will tell you there's constantly communication between me and them because it's always people not understanding the percentage that their income falls. It's really hard for seniors to understand that, so I think that's a brilliant idea to do, to explain to them there with income guidelines and tax credit, there is tier percentage, and based on the tier percentage, that's how we determine, and you might wait longer than other people.
And we very much appreciate your initiative on our behalf, believe me, and we really do appreciate that.
Absolutely. The fact they're going above and beyond looking for housing in other towns for some of these seniors is
we try to do
fantastic.
that.
Myrna, we really appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
And Joe, and exactly, Peter, we need to make sure we're not shooting the messenger here.
Oh,
At the
absolutely.
end of the day, there's a huge lack of affordable housing in Fairfield
No
County.
question.
Now, we have political representation that represents part of Darien, represents Norwalk, represents Stanford. Unless those people are engaged and are willing to legislatively change the issue, they can't do anything.
Agreed. What they're giving us is information. We
Exactly.
really appreciate you guys
Exactly.
stepping up and letting us know so that we can get a very much better handle on where we are, right? And that's the real challenge is that it's not about you guys and trying to magically come up with housing, which you can't do, okay? And I think it's also educational for the public to understand that the Housing Authority isn't doing 830G.
Right.
Isn't doing some of these places which have affordable housing built into them to comply with other rules. So understanding what the Housing Authority's limits are, okay, is critical, so that, because I'm sure you guys are, Myrna especially, is catching plenty of fire out there, clearly, as to what's going on here.
And
What we can do is, I'll talk to Chris. At Home in Darien can interview them and put an article in our communications.
Yeah.
I mean, that we have, that's what we can help with.
Yeah.
It's all of the different interactions, the library,
Yeah.
all of the areas
We also
whose
have-
job is communication and information. We need to help them. Now, we need to know the numbers. This is very helpful today for us to know the numbers. Because you've got to be able to have an impactful communication, and it has to really expose the problem in terms of the severity of it. People have no idea that if you signed up today you might be lucky in 4 years to have. People just have no concept of that. So the communication issue here is something that we can do, and through our contacts and our interactions, and I think the Aging Commission can take a huge role in that.
You know, one of the pieces of information I come back to, in the last, I'll say, 6 years, with all the development in town, we've added a lot of affordable units into new construction. We have no idea how many, we have no idea what the income levels are. My gut tells me just that, they're probably all 60% units, because the landlord wants to get as much revenue as he can. But we really need to know those numbers, because it may come out that we're not in bad shape on a macro basis on 60%, but we're in desperate shape on 25%. And that's where the money's gotta be spent to build that kind of housing. But we as a commission don't have that. And I don't think there is any place in town which is actively monitoring it. My guess is if you went into planning and zoning and looked through the application, you'll have some numbers. But I don't think there's any repository of who the management company is, who to contact, what the percentages are, and what the total number of, I'll say, privately owned affordable housing is versus the housing authority housing. And I think that'd be a very helpful piece of information to also be able to share.
That actually was gonna be my question, because how many management companies are there in our area besides Imagineers? What are the management, what are the actual facilities that they're managing?
Right.
And then also what are the private companies? Because you see, they did this in the assisted living, depending on what corporation is running, depends on what they do and how they manage it.
Right.
They're not regulated as you are regulated. But that's the missing piece here. You really don't know what the privates, the 830Gs, I would agree with you. They're probably all at the 60%, and there's some of them that even have a 10-year kind of thing. After 10 years, it's no longer an affordable housing unit. So who's doing that? So who are these people? This is more of a thing that needs to be uncovered and exposed.
That's actually a good point. All of our properties are deed restricted forever. They cannot be converted back to
Right.
market rate properties.
And I happen to know some of them are only 10 years, and they're waiting for folks to pass, and then they're gonna sell their unit at a high rate. So how do they broker that deal? So this is something bigger than
Right,
us. You know, in
exactly.
other words, it's something that actually needs exposure. And we need 60 minutes here. We really need someone to uncover that the 830G thing obviously really gets me, because when I do know about 2 units in our town that are doing this 10-year thing. And I think that's completely abhorrent.
And that's also a good point for seniors too, because I have some seniors who have come from properties who are designed like that, and once they go, Social Security increases every year for them. Once they go over a certain number, they have to move out.
Right.
So in moving out a senior who's been in a property for many years is pretty hard. So when they come to our properties, they never live, so it's also hard for us to provide more housing,
Right.
But
Exactly.
they designed their program to keep bringing people in, taking people out, but our properties, because they're like the Royal, once people sell their house and, they're coming to live there, they're not going to live until anything changes, either they pass away or they require an assisted living facility.
Right.
It makes it hard. Another point that I want to make is that our 60%, even though they're $1,700 apartment, they are, kids who were raised pretty good by their parents, who tend to come and say, well, my mom makes $25,000 and she's only getting Social Security, but my brother and I will pay for the rest of her rent. So we want to contribute to her income so she could be able to live here. She will be paying $1,700, perfect. She will pay her half for her portion, we'll pay the other half. So there are those options that sometimes people take with their helping their parents, and then they can get into a $1,700 apartment, but they're helping them being helped by the kids, which is a certification form that they need to complete by providing extra income to their parents to be able to have them just live in senior housing.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I know a few people that have that arrangement.
Yes.
And that, again, is wonderful. That's almost like taking care of your parent. I get it, I would never diss that. But here we are then with the people that are in that 25% range that really need the housing and have no other option, because
Right.
there's nobody for them. And they're probably if you want to say, the neediest.
Right.
Right? There again, in a sense, you kind of get in the shaft. But I wouldn't want to dissuade that. I think it's wonderful that it happens, and, you know.
Yes.
But if this is a bigger problem, then, you
Well,
know,
I think we've established that.
yeah.
Absolutely. I want to thank Peter and Myrna. You guys are awesome for coming. Thank you so much for all this great info. I'm sure that we will circle back to see whether we can do something, okay, involving an event at the senior center or involving At Home in Darien so far as getting publicity out there, because these numbers will be certainly great. So thank you both for coming. Really appreciate it.
We also host events at our Royal,
Okay.
so our Royal Requirements we host events monthly or semi-monthly. Sometimes it's education, sometimes it's, bingo night or something they have. So if you guys ever in the need to come to the Royal and have a presentation, you're guys more than welcome to come in as well.
Great. Thank you so
You
much.
gave me a great idea, though. I'm not sure it'll work for affordable housing, but for workforce housing, the new property might be a perfect place.
Good.
That fills a need, so.
Fair enough. Sounds great. Thank you both for coming. I'll let you out of our door over
We
here.
would appreciate your sending the documents so that.
Yes, I can send you guys,
to the meeting notes.
I will email you have his email,
The
right?
door's unlocked now.
His email?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can send you guys the income limits and we can
That's
send you guys the utility allowance.
It's unlocked.
Perfect, thank you.
So Peter will email you the income
Sounds
limits
great.
and the
Thank you
utility
all.
allowance.
Sounds great. You can go out that way. We'll have the lunch. No, they fixed the door while you were talking. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, guys.
That means they wanted us out of here.
Yes,
They didn't like
you
that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. That was wonderful.
Awesome, great stuff. And so with that in our rearview mirror, I bring us to our Mather Center report. Beth?
Normally I wouldn't go on about May, but there's still a lot of things going on. We've got 90 of our closest friends coming today for a partnered program with our intergenerational, the Darien Youth Commission for the middle school. We've got some 7th and 8th graders coming to hand out some decorations during our Flower of Power season. We have an incredible entertainment coming. There's still a few seats, so if somebody's watching, there's still a few seats available. We also have on May 22nd, the band Over Easy coming to do a patriotic performance. That's going to be paired with a lunch as well. And then on the 29th, At Home in Darien and the DSP are doing a Be Yourself, Be a Star. It's a karaoke event. It's very, very much enjoyed by everybody. We're trying to have some fun and enjoyment. That will be paired with a lunch as well. And At Home in Darien is complimentary lunch for Darien residents at that event. So we're hopping with entertainments. I think the June newsletter will be out by Friday. That's another packed newsletter. I compliment our program specialist, Caitlin Stote, whenever I speak about this, because Caitlin, everything you give Caitlin, she makes it so. So there's a lot of varied entertainments, activities, classes, government programs that are doing presentations. Next month, we also have appointments for people with carotid artery incidences of issues. There's going to be somebody coming in to do a diagnostic. We're gonna be getting more folks to do diagnostics. We just did another focus group, and in that focus group, it really was all about, we're gonna send another survey out for that one, was all about services that people wanna see. Preventive classes, 6 to 8 week classes for like chronic pain, diabetes management, because we do all of that as well. On Friday, starting this Friday, Sacred Heart University is sending occupational therapy students who are at the graduate level. They're going to take over from now until July, every Friday, the brain twisters and teasers that I do. They're doing brain gymnastics based on their occupational therapy background. So it's going to, we did this during COVID, which was wonderful. We did it on Zoom. Now this is, of course, a new group of students. They're going to do it in center, so this is part of their field placement. And we get enriched by it as well, because there's a lot of things that we learn about technology and things that they have that we are not currently aware of. So having the students in is great. We're going to have 3 different teams of students in, again, all graduate level students. In 2025, they'll all have their master's degrees. So as we partnered with Fairfield University. Sacred Heart University is now partnering with us as well. Also, the Alzheimer's Association is sending us a wonderful speaker Tuesday, May 21st at 4 p.m. with all the latest research. If anybody wants to take a flyer, it's healthy living for your brain and body. It's all the latest research that has been really developed in the last year between pharmaceuticals, nutrition, exercise programs, everything that you can learn to keep your brain healthy. The Alzheimer's Association doesn't only do support for folks that have cognitive issues, they're very invested in keeping us all wired and cooking as well as we can for the decades that we may live to. So they do this every year. So it's a whole update on everything that's been researched and found in this past year, as they're working very hard on that. So it probably will be 4 to about 5:30, 6 o'clock, depends on how many questions that are asked. I don't know the physician that's coming yet, that's always a surprise. But it's always somebody well-versed, and they're, believe it or not, I don't know if you're aware, but the Alzheimer's Association, everyone that comes to is a speaker, that's a professional speaker, is a volunteer. So they're all wonderful in their field, and they're all professional folks, but they're all volunteers. So it's, even when we have attorneys, it's just an incredible group that the association just continues with. So if you haven't seen it, it will be. And we're gonna do a series also in the fall with them. I don't know if this would fall under new business, so you tell me and I'll just stop talking. We did a presentation in front of the Darien Foundation on Monday night, Caitlin and I, for technical equipment.
Keep going.
Okay, to upgrade, and Caitlin did a wonderful PowerPoint presentation, and I was the question and answer person. I'm not used to being in front of all very big financial people, and it was hard to see no one laugh for a period of time. But then when I got the audience, and the questions start coming, because if you notice, I like to talk. So the questions start coming, and the questions were wonderful questions that really showcased what we do at the senior center in a big way. And they were all youngsters, may I say, at the table, lots of youngsters. And Sarah Woodbury actually emailed me at 9:30 at night that it was unanimous that we were gonna get the full amount of money that we were asking.
Nice, congratulations.
So, yeah, so there's a lot of new tech stuff that's gonna be at the center, thanks to the diligent work of Caitlin
And you.
thank you,
Yes.
and yeah, it was my pleasure to do, so this is really, again, a nice feather in our cap.
Very cool.
So-
Awesome. Questions for Beth? Hearing none, thank you so much. Ally and Cynthia could not be here today, so we will not have a human services report. Old business quick, chairman's privilege. We had some wonderful news from the Planning and Zoning Commission that we in fact have allowed accessory dwelling units as of July 1 in Darien. We did send a letter ahead of that to them, which we got a very nice thank you from Steve Olvany, the chair of P&Z on that. I'm going to give the letter to our secretary so it can be part of our minutes. Other old business going to you, Jim, as far as what's going on at home in Darien.
Yeah, and just one comment about that. If you haven't seen Joe's performance on Channel 79, it was two items, but he just did a wonderful job on the tax lien situation. You really need to see it. And back to communication, I was thinking about that when they were talking. That would be very helpful to have that kind of in-depth discussion, but you did a tremendous job. He represented all of the issue and in a very positive way, and it was great.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. At home in Darien, Chris is in human resource training. They co-sponsored an author speaking event at the library, and they're at home in Darien, as is the Mather Center and others, getting much more connected with the library on programs and joint programming. They'll be participating in the Senior Health and Fitness Day at the Darien Y on the 29th. Our spring annual appeal letter goes out in 2 weeks, and that's big for us. That's where we get the funding basically for the entire year. We have a secondary raise, but that one is huge, so that will be going out. This year, we will be including a solicitation envelope also in the out and about that goes out. And we're going to have a table at the Darien sidewalk sale, July 11th through 13th. We'll hand out little tchotchkes and stuff like that. We are, Beth mentioned that there's, on May 30th, there's a karaoke event that AHID is participating in with Beth. We are looking at the opportunity to see if we want to acquire another vehicle in order to expand a different level of services. This would be to, we're talking with local restaurants and others about nights out for seniors and figuring out ways to provide transportation for that. We already make offers for transportation to the Darien High School for the free play on the night before. So a lot of activity that Chris and his team's got going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Other old business, Peter.
Joe, I do have a number of things. I'm going to take us over the 10 o'clock.
You're fine, go for it.
10 o'clock limit. There's 4 things I'd like to talk about. Most recently, the CWC SEO, and let me again explain that it's the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity and Opportunity, this hodgepodge that the state put together, has now a new executive director. Her name is Malvette Hill. I've given the recording secretary a little bit of information on that. She replaces Stephen Hernandez. Malvette Hill was the associate director on children. Malvette was the associate director on partnership, leadership, and family engagement. So she was already on the staff of CWC SEO, as was her predecessor, Stephen Hernandez, who had that position for children. So once again, this organization is going to be led by a professional, very involved in that commission, but again, sadly, with not a focus on seniors. So again, it's something, again, we should keep in the back of our mind to see what down the road the state could do to separate us out from women, children, equity, and opportunity. SWACA, the planning is going ahead on the Aging Summit, and again, I've given our secretary information on it. It's on November the 19th. Last year, as far as I know, only one person came from Darien, and that was Caitlin Coate, one person that's in this area. There's going to be 4 tracks: transportation, housing, economic security, and loneliness and isolation. And so it's going to, and the program is being well developed, I think, and it's going to be important. So we'll get more information, and the registrations will begin on that. AARP, the legislative end of the season update. As of 2 weeks ago, there were 275 bills that did not pass out of the Senate, and about the same out of the House. And this was a really strange legislative session. I'm going to be attending an update that AARP is going to be holding next week, and so I'll give a report next month.
Perfect.
But, I mean, there were a lot of things, and again, a lot of political back and forths, and unfortunately, a lot of things didn't get done. A few things did get done that, again, focus on helping protect seniors and where they live and elder care issues, but really, truly not enough. The other thing that we need to realize is that there's going to be a primary in our state on August the 13th. It's going to be a Republican primary. There's 2 people that are going to contest Senator Chris Murphy's seat.
Wow.
So I bring that up because, again, I'm sure the town is going to be needing poll workers, which might be hard to do on August the 13th.
Yeah, I was going to say.
In the middle of the summer. Finally, I want to talk about the library.
Go for it.
Two things on the library. On Wednesday, May the 22nd, it's the 1894 day. So the library has an event that day celebrating its 130th anniversary and the 15th anniversary of its building, the new building. And they put out a flyer, and it's really interesting, and again, I gave a copy to our secretary. Since the building opened in 2009, the library has loaned out 8,437,000 items. It has 4,357 million visitors. It had answered 1,494,000 questions and hosted more than 12,000 programs. So it is a very, very rigorous program. And again, we encourage you and the viewers to find a time on Wednesday, May the 22nd, anytime from noon to midnight. Visit the library, maybe bring along a check there. You know, we're looking for $130 and up or down. $13 would be fine as well. But it's just, again, shows the vitality to the community. The second item is one that I really find intriguing. So I would ask, what is the most frequent call that a library gets for information? Anybody?
Is my book available?
No, it's not. It has to do with obituaries.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Okay, so it has to do with obituaries. People doing genealogy search.
Oh,
So
yeah.
10 years ago, the library asked a group of us volunteers to do a legacy project. And we now have live last week, online, through the library, a obituary index. So if you are looking for some information on someone that's passed away, either by the date of the year or the last name, and this was a remarkable undertaking because it goes back to 1902, which is where we had newspapers at the library.
Wow.
Wow.
So using library resources and newspapers, the fact of funeral homes in town, we were able to build this. It included going through microfiche. I was involved in it. I couldn't do the microfiche because my eyes just could not handle that. But it's a tremendous project, it's a tremendous effort, and it truly is a legacy effort. And the library was really, really supportive of it in providing the technology, the staffing, and the urging and getting volunteers. So I think it's a terrific little thing that's happening. Go visit it's a complex, I guess, web address is darien-library.org/Darien-library-obituary-index. But if you go to the library site, you'll find it.
We've got it. It's going to be in our minutes too. So anybody who couldn't take that down on TV 79, go to our minutes. They'll be in there. But it's very cool too, because I think of all of our wonderful members of our Commission on Aging who have gone to their reward, who are now going to be on that site. I think of Ron Heinbaugh, May Lachek, and all those folks. And so kudos to you and all your team for doing that, because it's very, very cool. Not to be able to know that these people will be up there on that site forever for all intents and purposes.
When they sent me a note letting us know that that it was live, I said, I'm so glad that I made it before I found myself in line.
Exactly.
It's a list you don't want to be on.
Not yet, anyway. Absolutely. You want to be on it eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but
Well, you will be on it.
immediately. Well, but I'm guessing you've got to die in Darien, though, right? It is people who are residents of Darien, or how does that work?
Yeah, it is.
So don't move, because if you move, you won't be on it.
Or Darien
But
families?
you have no idea how complex it was, because if you were a lady, for example, and you passed away, say in the 40s or 30s or 20s, you died as Mrs. Tom Dempsey.
Right.
You never died as Mrs. Marie, what her maiden name was.
Wow.
And so they went, actually reconstructed, looking at those listings to see who Miss Marie Dempsey was by her maiden name.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Fun project.
Really good project. And 10 years to do shows you kind of the amount of work they're required. Awesome, thank you.
Ancestry.com will thank you greatly for
Yeah.
that. Believe me, they will know exactly what that link is and they will be on it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Good stuff, good stuff. Other old business? Hearing none, do we have any new business? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the closing? But before I do that, hold up, I'm gonna hold back one thing. One error in our agenda, okay? That is, because of Juneteenth next month, okay, we're meeting June 12th, okay, so keep that in mind. We're meeting the second Wednesday. This was sent down to us by the selectmen because the town hall, I think, is gonna be closed or it's some semi-level closed for Juneteenth. I don't know. They told us we prefer you not to meet on Juneteenth. So as a result, we have moved our meeting to June 12th next month. Okay? Cool. Now may I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Tom. Second. Thank you, Mary. All in favor? I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.